Welcome everybody to the Sale Melbourne Race Officers Seminar 2024. Wow. I think it's a great experience for all officials coming together here, and it's something to look forward to every year. It's really great, really great. So I thank Royal Brighton Yacht Club for hosting Sale Melbourne, and again, it's such a prestigious event, so it's really special to be here. And to Australian Sailing and their staff are supporting this event, so thank you for that, guys. So again, I say like how incredibly lucky we are to be officiating in such an amazing sport, and with incredibly like-minded people. So that part is really something I love doing to it. So it's an opportunity to meet and greet. Sometimes you heard a name or related a person to a class or whatever, but you come here and there's an opportunity to meet them. So I urge all officials to travel to other clubs and meet people. Go to those regattas that need help. Love to see extra people. So get out of your own space and go visit, see how things are done elsewhere. You may learn something, and others will learn from you. Absolutely. It's a really, it's a friendly vibe. I just think everybody should enjoy it. Look, everyone has skills. Some have great skills in certain things. We're not good at everything, but collectively, with putting great people around us, we put on an awesome show. And you can do a great regatta, but you've got to build a great team around you. And that's what we do. When you come away to these places, you'll meet somebody and you'll ask them to come along to your next gig. So I suppose altogether, together as a great team, we can make race management very, very enjoyable. And even the last few days, I've been very fortunate to meet some wonderful people. So, and looking forward to working with them again in the future. So without further ado, some of the things which we'll be discussing tonight. We have Alex Amsler is coming on Zoom in a minute. He's the co-developer and director of Boyzone for all their updates and how that's going on. We've got the Vacross Race Sense starting system explained by Dean Robson, National Race Officer, as also officiating here this weekend. We have a national officiating update by Sarah Ogilvie, who's their head of sport and development and growth for Australian Sailing. Sarah will be doing a bit of a spreadsheet on there, how it's all unfolding. And then we'll do the changes to the racing rules of sailing, 2025 to 28, that affect race officers. And Peter Osborne, a national race officer, and the PRO for Sale Melbourne will be addressing that. So terrific. So what we'll do now, I'll just push a button, and all I have to do is push the go button. And where's Meg? Where's Meg? That button.
Is it working?
Karen on that.
Not that one. Ask Karen. Not that button.
No.
That button.
That one.
And go one more. And all right, we want Boyzone update.
Yep.
There we go. And we're going to turn things around, and we're going to click into. We've got a Zoom with Alex, who's going to take control of the screen. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you, Stephen. If you guys able to turn the camera on your side?
Yeah,
Oh, there we go.
We
Awesome.
will. We're going to turn you around now.
And you guys can all hear me?
Loud and clear.
Excellent. Well, appreciate the opportunity to speak, and thank you for the time. I was just reflecting on your comments there, Stephen. Yeah, just the sentiment about why we developed Boyzone and so on and so forth. You know, and I think I always share the slide, but I think getting good people together And you know, ultimately it's you guys in the room out there volunteering your time, helping, you know, people get out sailing and get people on the water. It should never be forgotten. I mean, it's you guys from a race officer perspective, and all the mark setters and everybody else who makes things happen. And that's, we just want to contribute our little bit to make life a little easier. So anyway, there we go. That's Rob and I. And for several of you, I think you've probably already met us or spoke or listened to us ramble on before, so I'll skip that one. But again, it comes back to this purpose and of supporting, you know, that volunteer backbone of yacht racing, and that's everywhere in the world, and making life easier for you. That's our ultimate goal. If we're not doing that, then we're missing the point. So that's, I always like to have that one there. Now, I've kept, from an agenda perspective, really, if there's any questions from you guys, please ask. I haven't prepared lots of slides. I'm going to sort of walk through a few updates on the app, and feel free to jump in, because for a lot of you, you already use Boyzone anyway. I mean, as a show of hands, I'm assuming most people have been exposed to it and use it generally on an ongoing basis. Yeah. So I don't really teach you to suck eggs kind of thing. So I'll jump into a couple of things here. There's been some UI updates. The user interface is updated slightly. You will have seen that. I can just walk through some of the sort of finer details of that. There's an addition there to the trap course around the 2A, which is there was a bit of an ask around allowing the outer loop to be shifted, and I'll show you what's possible there. The areas within the club features, obviously this screenshot here is Royal Yacht Club Victoria there. You'll see they've added on obviously some of the shipping lanes and that kind of thing, but you know, and for you guys today, you'll have had the course areas as big circles. The course chat, now I've turned that on for you as a beta user. You'll be able to see it. I'll show you a little bit more, and if you guys are welcome to join the course that I'll share with you later on as well. And then just a little update on some of the automated marks with MarkSet Bot, Gypsy Boy, and then maybe a little bit of thought about how AI may come to help out in the sport a little bit as well. Anyway, so that's a very quick kind of agenda. Now what I'm going to do is hopefully share my screen. And then I can walk you through some of these updates. Get with me. Right, I'll stop sharing this. Now, I'm hoping you can see my phone.
Was your phone on the left of our screen? Yep.
Yeah. So what I wanted to do, so I'm just going to join like one of your courses here. And just kind of run you quickly through. You would have seen a bit of a different UI here, perhaps from that. There was an update earlier in the year. I mean, the key bits to take away here is the course details being up the top here. If you tap on that button there at the top, you get all the course details. Now they used to be buried somewhere else. Now they're kind of front and center. Obviously, those distances that I'm in New Zealand, so it's a long way away. But you can, for those that don't know, you can obviously expand this. You can get, for every mark, you can get the specific coordinates and so on and so forth. And if you want, on the top right, you can share that whole lot as a GPX file. And if you want, you can open it on your computer on like Notepad or something like that, and you'll get all the marks and all of the coordinates for them, or you can put them into something else if you want to. That's just a heads up that that's sitting there. And then the other one with the 7 next to it there is everybody who'd been on that course. And obviously that's more relevant if you're out on the water, but it gives you an idea just of that's shifted around a little bit from where it used to be down the side. Now, one of the things that I was responding to today was, I think from Peter, was obviously these course course areas, if you're tapping on them, they're going to pop up with this kind of thing. That can be a little bit annoying, especially if you're just trying to tap on the mark and you miss it and you get that. You can open this what do we call this, the map layers, and you can just turn them off if you don't want to see them, and that's just for you. So that's just a little heads up. If you're out in the water, you can turn that on and off as the mark layer and as an RO. As an RO, if you've got the other courses which are around you, which I'll get to in a moment, that will turn them off as well, which can be a little bit annoying if somebody set a course like a couple of hours ago and you're overlapping it, and then they're not there anymore. You can just turn it off. You don't have to look at it. So there's a few of the details from a UI perspective. Now, the one in the trap course, I'm just going to jump around here a little bit. So I've created this here, you guys, and again, this will be set outside you guys. And I share it. You can jump onto that course if you want. Oh, I can't actually do that because I haven't paid. Yeah, I should actually be able to do that. Anyway, I think the key takeaway. Oh, this was the bit here. With the additional courses, you can hide them away. That's so from a race officer perspective. And what I wanted to show here was just this trap and the ability to add this additional to like Mark II, and how you can adjust that around, and the information that you're provided in the advanced settings. Now, this may not be relevant to all of you, but sometimes you're sailing a trap course where the outer leg, the outer loop has maybe some different conditions happening, or there is a shift and you only want to shift one part of the trap and not all of it. So if we come down to you'd have to turn on this 2A. By default it's off. You can turn that on, and then you've got this option to toggle between a distance, so that's from Mark II to 2A, or the course or the axis, and that would now be from your 2A down to Mark III. So you don't have to sort of calculate what is this axis going to be after I move it. You can just say I need a 345. This course that I've set on is on 00. But that can often be the thing. You've got your person up on Mark II telling you the wind's at X, and the course axis should be this on this leg, and you can go ahead and adjust that over. So if I set it to 10 degrees, you'll see it'll bring it to the inside. Obviously a bit weird, but you get the point here. We're trying to make life a little bit easier if you just need to shift that outer loop in and out a little bit. So that's a little recent update, probably relevant to some of you in the room from time to time. The other one that is new-ish in recent times, obviously you guys have seen, and a lot of you use at your clubs have got the club features active and have had these kind of waypoints like this one. You've got these like this rock, for example, but what you haven't had is these like larger kind of shaded areas. Now these ones here are circles, which are relevant kind of from a course area perspective, but there are other examples which I had up earlier that are allow you to kind of, maybe there's a rock or like a big like a shallow area or a channel or there's lots of different reasons why clubs have them, and you can create essentially a polygon shape. You can create your own shape, whatever that form is, and you essentially add on points, and you can go very granular with it if you like. An example local in this area would be, we've sort of drawn a 2-meter contour, and so we know at any tide that there's 2 meters of water there. And so for all the reasons that you might not want to set a course inside that. That's an example, and that could be relevant for your areas when you head back to them. The course chats, now that's something up here. Now, if I join one of your courses from today, you'll see Actually, this is a little example. This is actually a little update as well, and most people didn't notice it, which is great. It was pretty easy, but you essentially have to choose which boat you're on. And the reason that that's useful is you would have seen back here as actually I can do it in there too. When you join it, when you join one of these courses, if I join that boat, this list looks a lot better. Firstly, like you end up having people on boats rather than just people on their own. And obviously, you guys aren't on the water at the moment, so it won't show. But the course is not so littered with so many support boats and boats maybe and people maybe on the committee boat that are showing up, and you end up with this sort of grouping of these little boats everywhere. Now it becomes, if that boat's got 10 people on it, it's only going to show once, not 10 times like it used to. So that's a little update. The chat is in this area up here. Now, if I just go back to the Bravo course, I think that one had a bit more on it. You can see what it's going to include here, and my font's very small, so I apologize. But it's going to add on all the details that every time the course updates, and I can actually message to say, I can just say, in this case, I'll just do a test message. And what's going to happen is it will update and send this through. Now, I do say it's in beta, so we're working on it. But it's essentially, it's going to send a message to everybody on the course. So it could be something like Mark 1 set, whatever it is. The race officer may ask for an update on wind, and you could have somebody, for example, just drop in the wind readings into there, and everybody can see that, but also it's a log and it sort of goes on in time. We're thinking it's kind of useful to reduce some of those comms on the radio. There's especially ones where it's like you're going to have to write it down anyway, like maybe there's some wind, maybe there's some sort of various updates and things. You can just drop it into here, and eventually that will aggregate a bunch of those kind of comms happening on the course. That, you know, for the reasons that you could think of, it's an area that we're considering and working on now. I have activated it for you, or Rob has told me that he's activated it for you, so you should be able to see it. And apologies if there is some bugs in there, because we are still working on it, so it's a bit early, but you can have a play with it at least. What was the other one there was the automated marks. Now, if I come back to like one of these courses, you'll see at the bottom, right at the bottom, and some of you may be having this come up a little bit more, is just around some of these automated marks coming into the clubs. And yeah, if you do, you're lucky, because you know, they're kind of expensive, but they are pretty cool. They do some interesting stuff. So we've recently added Gypsy Boy, and now they're globally not as well known, but it is worth noting that they were the marks that we used for the Olympics recently. So they were selected by the Olympic Committee there and used for the Olympics. And from everything we hear, they worked really well. I think other than them being marks and being in certain locations, I understand that they are lighter than the mark set bots, so it can be a little easier to pull onto a boat. That's probably the only difference that I've observed. But I think other than that, they hold their positions. Both of them do, Mark Setbot and Gypsy Boy. But it's so from a boy zone perspective, at this point, if you tick that box, the course settings that you have will be sent over to their app, and you still need to use their app, because obviously there's a lot more details around how you can control those devices on their apps. But what it then allows you to do is it like pops in all of those coordinates and everything, and then you can tell on their app for the marks to go to the locations that you want. So you can imagine on a trap where you have lots of marks, you may only have one of these smart or automated marks available to you. So you may only put it up to Mark 1. So you might just be like, I want Mark 1 to be that because that's the one that's most likely to shift around. And so you can say, I'd like you to go to where Boyzone said Mark 1 is. And then other marks would still be set manually by the mark, your mark setters using Boyzone as normal. We will be working on having that information being bidirectional, so that on Boyzone you'll be able to, and everybody else will be able to see where the automated mark is at any one time. So like it'll overlay like where on the mark, assuming that's where you've told it to go. So that's something that's quite interesting, and you could foresee the potential, because some of those marks have got wind readings and stuff on them, that potentially that information could also then become visible on Boyzone. So that's the mark set box. And then the only other sort of talking point I think that was a little bit interesting as a sort of separate thought, actually, do you guys have any questions on any of that stuff? Is there anything that you want me to expand on?
What's the Gypsy Boy? What's that one? Is that just
So Gypsy Boy is the automated marks, and they're the ones that were used at the Olympics. Those are the ones that yeah. So it's a small company based out of Switzerland, and yeah, in concept very similar to MarkSetBot, which is I think been in market a little longer. But yeah, they came onto our radar because they approached us, and they were also at the Olympics, and they did all the automated marks for the recent Olympics in France. So you know, they obviously have had to go through some scrutiny to be selected for quite a high profile regatta, right?
A question that I have is on a trapezoid course. How can we increase the length of the beat by say 0.15 of a nautical mile without changing the outer gate position? So I don't want to increase the distance between the inner and outer. I just want to increase the length of the course.
Let's have a look. Because I think it scales the whole.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it scales. You can reduce the reach length down, or at least you can set it to be like this top reach length. You can set it, but it's always going to scale. Once you set it, it's going to scale. The other way, obviously, you can increase the leg length is by using the X1 and X2. So if you, for example, head out in the morning, set the course, and you set it at a mile, and that's good at that point, and then the wind drops away or increases, you can use the X1, and that asks you as a percentage, do you wish the course, do you want it to be 110%, or do you want it to be a 90% of the course length? And then you'll be given, so if I add the X1, it's going to ask me what percentage. If I set that course, you'll see it's obviously going to add the X1 up higher. And I saw somebody using that today on one of your courses. You had it set below. Obviously, if you want to, you can, set it as not 100%, but you say 80%, and it's going to drop it inside then like that. Does that solve your problem?
Not if you're already using the X1 and X2.
Yeah. I mean, you can technically, if you really want to, you can also use the 1A, and then you can set that to 0, and you could say put that at, I'm just going to call it 200, and then you see you've got the 1A. Yeah. So you can use the 1A as well. So something to note there. I get sometimes a little confused. Let me see. Can you do a? Yeah. See, you can also add an XA. So technically technically you could also do this. So again, if I set that at 0, you can technically add another one as well. So like now you've got 4 top marks. So the X can have an A as well, as can the 1 have an A. And that way, hopefully that gives you enough sort of flexibility to, you know, shift it around without shifting everything. Because I understand the pain of the whole lot scaling and you having to move everything once you've set it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's one of the core features, Alex. That's Peter. One of the core features, the zones for where you want your courses lay, which I think is great. The only way you can get that up though is if you're also managing a course. So I have to create a course inshore somewhere out of the way, and only then can I see the 4 courses out in the race area. Or is there a hack where you can go in there and say, I'm a PRO, I want to see all the courses?
At this point, there's no like PRO view. You do have, yeah, as you say, you have to create a course to see the others. It is something that we're considering, and both from a PRO, like a land-based, like I'm the land-based PRO, and I kind of want to see what's going on. That is an interesting function. It's kind of, and I mean, it's coincidence that it kind of PRO pro, but it seems to be very much like a pro level kind of functionality. Like it's kind of like you're an advanced user that really gets it to be thinking about that. Another user group that's potentially interested in that type of information is things like, especially in ports, like where you guys are, the harbour masters, and sometimes the pilots are a little bit interested in potentially that kind of view, because they're like, what's going on out here? We can see the sailing boats, and if that was overlaid on a map, it kind of makes it much more, you know, for all the reasons that we know, it makes it easy to see what's happening.
Okay, thanks.
So that's just we've had some discussions with some port authorities around that kind of thing. Yeah, I can go into detail, but it's probably not worth it for this group as to why that can be a bit of a challenge. Yeah, anything else?
All good.
Yeah, cool. How are we doing for time? I know we started a little late, and I can bring you guys back into time, or I can discuss some of the AI stuff a little bit if you want.
That'd be great to listen to a little bit of that to see where things are actually headed.
Yeah, so Rob and I, obviously Boyzone is sort of nights and weekends for us. We both have day jobs, and we work for a software engineering consultancy. And so we're quite exposed to a lot of the AI stuff that's happening in lots of different areas, both from a kind of functional aspect, which you guys probably experience when you might be chatting with a company or a telco or something like that with online, and that might be an AI that you're interacting with. But there's lots of stuff also in the sort of developer experience, like in the engine room of the guys writing code and helping them be more efficient. So there's my point here is there's quite a broad spectrum of how AI might be applied now, or at least how we're seeing it. What we can see as potential applications, and from a race management perspective, some of the kind of interesting ones, which I think are pretty close to potentially being mainstream, like we could probably mock something up, would be an ability to potentially point a camera at a top mark and it be able to read pretty accurately what the sail numbers are, and be able to say this one's passed, and potentially put timestamps on things. So you can imagine this kind of ability for you to point a camera at something, and it's just gonna, if you said, I need you to like note down as the boat sail past, that it could just have a feed of seen this boat past at this point, etc., etc. You kind of go, well, why is that useful? Well, sometimes it's useful to know when boats pass a certain points. Obviously, finishing is one that's always interesting. OCS, or the starts, is always an interesting one as well. Not sure. I mean, it's going to suffer from the same issues where it can't see because there's something else in front, or like the quality of the optics. in terms of distance, but you could see how even something as potentially simple as being able to like read out which boats have gone past Mark 1, I suspect that could be something which may be achievable within the next, I don't think it's going to be too long before something could potentially be put together to support something of that nature. The other side of it is obviously yachting, and I heard that the last part of your agenda is looking at the rules that are changing and coming in. It's very kind of rules based, and there's a book, and this is how it is, and and a way of doing things that's kind of process oriented as well. And AI is quite good at that kind of thing. So I could potentially see, and we've dabbled with it, like if you throw, like I've played with it to the point where I've thrown some SIs at one of the models and asked it to draw me a course diagram. Now, it was not great initially, and I had to sort of adjust it, but the point that it's able to draw me a course diagram based on SIs, and you think this thing knows nothing about sailing, but it knows about reading language, etc., etc. It was able to produce me a diagram of a windward leeward course, not knowing really what that it wouldn't know what that is, but it drew a diagram that eventually was accurate, and that's surprising. Now, obviously, asking it questions around, if you imagine if you threw the World Sailing Bible at it and asked it questions around particular incidents and that kind of thing, I suspect it may initially be a little ropey, but I suspect it will get very, very good at answering those types of like questions. And the other thing it does obviously really well is references. Like it can go this reference, this paragraph, and it can give you the full thing if you want it to summarize something or that kind of thing. So those are potential areas that, I mean, you guys can play with that already if you've got access to ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini and Google, whichever one. You could throw like a rule book at it and just interact with it. Recommendation would always be to give it context, like say I am a national race officer and I am running a regatta and I need to have some questions answered, and then ask it the question once you've put the book at it and just see what it does. I think you'll be impressed as to the level of detail that it can produce and reference very, very quickly. So those are some, like, I appreciate that's a little abstract potentially, but I have a feeling the ability to do that kind of thing may be quite helpful, because these can be quite long-winded books and maybe written in not the most natural language, but these things can change that into language very, very quickly and surface information that you actually want to see, not everything, Yeah. Any sort of thoughts on that, or anything that you guys think pie in the sky, or maybe a bit interesting?
I think certainly the mark groundings, Alex, would really beneficial, because and we can just monitor and is that we able to read that real time back on the boat that we can connect to, or how's that going to be linked? Or
I mean, nothing's been built, but the potential that it could like drop into like a chat feed. You can imagine, like, that's where like the chat feed could be quite interesting, because it could just go, I'm the Mark 1 bot or something like that, and it's going to give you like this boat, or these sail numbers at least have passed, and put a timestamp on them, right?
I see a market for spectators who are too far or onshore, and just going around marks. You could that would be amazing. Yeah,
we're looking at the tracking stuff is coming back to our kind of ethos a little bit around trying to keep things simple and leveraging technology that's broadly available. The tracking technology, ultimately, the nicest thing would be that we have a nice tracker on each boat and we can see them, right? That would be great. And I think some of you in the room have probably experienced some of that kind of technology before, like the likes of Track, et cetera. And if you look at the America's Cup, for example, and you go, well, that's amazing. The like fidelity and the sort of resolution that they can work to, so that they're avoiding collisions and making, essentially sitting in a back room, making all the calls from a race management perspective. Problem is that the technology that sits on those boats is obviously quite expensive and would be difficult to. It would just be too expensive at this point. What we've thought, and we keep thinking it, is, and we're seeing some advances in, especially in connected watches, is that if sailors had their watch on and we could track it live, it would be something that the sailors have potentially anyway as a smartwatch, so that they may not require them to buy another piece of technology, and it would allow you to potentially track them around the course and know where they are. It's not going to be good enough to do OCS or a finish, but I suspect it would support some of those calls. You know, if you thought you saw something, but then actually the data afterwards showed that they were nowhere near that situation, you know, that kind of thing can be quite helpful. And certainly from a finishing perspective, if you had a filtered list of who's approaching the line in a rough order, and then you were to say tap that once you see them cross the line, that's already quite helpful, right? Versus the pen and paper, et cetera, or the pencil and wax paper that we often see. That, you know, that could be helpful in supporting finishing, for example, and give live results, which, you know, can take hours sometimes for those results to come through because it's a piece of paper, it has to go back to the club, et cetera, right? Anyway, yes, I guess there's some more future kind of thoughts. We always have to come back to trying to support the sport as best as we can, whilst being conscious that Boyzone can get very, very big very, very easily, and there's only so many hours in the day that we have outside of work and then family life as well, to you know, support things. And you know, we're very, very eager to make sure that it's a sustainable thing in terms of it doesn't get so big. Ultimately, that we work on need to be meaningful to you guys, and where it becomes ever more niche, that's where we have to sort of draw the line. And so sometimes, if we really welcome your feedback, and we have acted on lots of bits and pieces, but where we have to sometimes draw the line is we think it's not enough people that will benefit. It's not a bad idea, it's just, it's niche, and there's only so many people we can help. Yeah.
Yeah, good, Alex. Just keep it simple so we can all understand it.
Yeah, and hopefully it's staying that way. We work pretty hard to just, if we change something, we're not fundamentally changing anything, I guess. We're keeping it as it is, so you can pick it up each time and go, it's familiar. I know what it is. Something's shifted, but it's fundamentally, I can get on with it and use it.
Beautiful. Oh, we have some questions from the floor. Yes.
Today I was not aware that I accidentally pressed that.
I saw a man overboard come up. I actually.
Twice.
Yeah.
I wasn't the only one that has done it this week. I just wonder whether maybe that was a little bit too easy to bump. Because
it does require you to, if you hit it like this, you'll see it. It requires you to actually push twice.
Okay.
And yeah, and obviously man overboard's the default, but you can also seek, request assistance, or there could be a medical issue as well. So you can activate it for different reasons. Appreciate the man overboard's the default. Yeah.
I didn't know.
We thought about it. And we're like, once is too easy. So we sort of thought you have to do it and then confirm it.
And your own host phone's going to be going ballistic, I can tell you.
Well, it goes to everybody who's been active on the course. It's at least it's easy enough to turn off as well. If you I mean, obviously I can activate it, and then I can just deactivate it as well.
One of the problems with with that perhaps is also the phones, tablets get wet, and so you accidentally activate it, and then it could take you 5 minutes or so to try and hit the right spot to deactivate it if you've got a bit of spray around.
Yeah. Well, the race, like assuming it's like somebody on the course that does it by mistake, the race officer can deactivate it. And I'm assuming if one pinged off, honestly, the amount of times they go off is very rare. We see it; it's not very often at all. And most of the time, I think it's just people playing with it. I could tell you in the last, I don't know, probably in the last month. In the last month, I think I've seen it once or twice. And there's hundreds and hundreds of courses, or depending on the season, it could be thousands of courses set. So yeah, it's marginal, but the race officer can turn it off, and the person who activated it can turn it off. Even so, even if it's there, the activity can continue. Like it's sort of it shouldn't stop sailing. It should probably lead to a radio comms or something to go like, what's happening? Because it could be genuine.
What's the issue? Well, we've got an issue with battery usage on your phone. So quite often we'll turn the activate it, then we'll kill the app so it doesn't shoot through our battery. So what's that going to be the implication for chat on all the rest of the world? Will the chat come back in once we turn it back on again, or will that be lost?
No, the chat will be there. Like even if you just close the screen, you don't need to sort of kill the app. You can just close the screen or move away. Chat will actually be there, and that's been a surprising wormhole for Rob to solve. Like the likes of WhatsApp that you guys are all used to probably using. There's a lot of work that goes into making the WhatsApp as smooth as it is. Yeah, so we're actually leveraging a platform that does messaging and apps, but there's still a huge amount of work that's gone into it, and it's in beta because we kind of want to see how it goes. There's definitely licensing implications to it, like there's costs to us. And so we just want to see if people actually like it, because then we build it out more, but there will likely be costs. There'll be likely some kind of cost thing that has to come through because there's direct costs associated with using it. At this point, we're kind of hiding.
Alex, just a question or maybe comment, probably something to think about for in your development scheme. You mentioned smartphones and people have got Apple devices, or they've got what's the Apple tag?
AirTag.
You got Google is something equivalent, but just from a knowing who's on the actual water perspective in terms of having tabs on competitors, that sort of feature, knowing the visibility of competitors is probably a safety feature that's probably more beneficial than from me knowing how someone's tracking down a course. So if there was an enhancement that dealt with knowing that if you've got that sort of thing, you could tap into it or register as a competitor onto a course using your smartphone or your that might be a good way of helping keep tabs on competitors that wander off. Never hear from them until with radio chat.
You're thinking like a log on, log off thing kind of thing?
No, it's more of a visual. So like where you can look for your air tag. So if I see that the air tag is literally on the beach, then I know that that competitor's ashore. Whereas if I'm looking for them out on the course, and I've got confirmation straight away that they're actually offshore.
Yeah, we've really thought about using the likes of AirTag, like that kind of tech that's again available. The challenge that it presents is because it always relies on, it's kind of a what's it called? The network relies essentially on phones to then transmit that on, and you just don't know that that's happening, but that's how it works. because the transmission radius is, you know, is of a certain size, and that's it. And some of the challenges that we face is where some of the courses might be a mile or two out, and so between the beach and maybe there was somebody around with a phone that picked them up, and maybe there wasn't, and there and where and the course, you may get nothing. So they may leave the course, for example, and head home or head back because of whatever, and you can't see them anymore. You see their last known location, hoping that maybe they passed the committee boat or something like that where there was a phone and it registered, and then beyond that there's nothing. Like you've got nothing. And so we had thought maybe, because they use Bluetooth under the hood, they use Bluetooth, like low energy Bluetooth, so that's why they last for ages. They're great, but they do rely on other phones being around.
Yeah.
And so what we're thinking potentially is a more a technology that's going to be reliable to show you where somebody is, potentially, is that has like mobile phone coverage in it, so it can transmit its location independent of it, just on its own. So that's potentially something that we're thinking about.
Okay.
And we had been talking with some of the blind sailors in your area as well, thinking like if essentially you could do like a virtual course where through the watch it could signal to the sailor, like exactly what that is. I don't know, like whether they're, you know, where the top mark is, because at the moment you obviously use audio marks and that kind of thing. But we've definitely had situations described to us where sailors have been quite scared, especially when the winds come up, and that they become disorientated, and you know, it's you imagine, and for all the reasons, it's amazing that they're out there doing the sport. And then if it all gets a bit difficult and turns pear-shaped, you imagine it gets very difficult quickly. And so having a watch that they could even request help on and that kind of thing could be, you know, useful. And I know we've discussed other ones too, where like your winging fleets and those kind of things, like very visible to like not visible when they're in the water, and they're very fast, so they disperse quite quickly. And like it ends up being a bobbing head kind of thing. From a race management perspective, race officers, that can be a risk. You know, you sort of need to keep eyes on things pretty closely, especially if there was going to be a change in weather and that kind of thing. So I don't know. Those are some thoughts.
Is there a way I'm feeling new to voice and stuff, it may be that I haven't found it yet, but to investigate a mark. So if a mark's either dragged or been deflated, that you could say, hey, look, 1A needs investigation. You sort of get a flag or a notification saying, go and have a look at it. Is that technology available, or would people utilize it?
There's no hardware on the devices. You can set any old mark, right? So we kind of virtually lay the course out, and then the marks where they're actually set could be very different to what we're virtually saying where they should be. Now, if one,
what I'm saying
yeah,
is they're set virtually, but I then looking at the course, I can't see 1A. Now, it may have been dragged or deflated. So I then want to put a marker on there to somebody else who's got the app to then investigate and go, hey, let's go make sure it hasn't moved, or it's still there. Is there something to do like that?
What we normally see happen is that because you can see where all the support boats are, and often you'll end up having a mark boat at Mark 1 anyway, because they usually hang out up there, is that you'll have a mark boat go to where the mark should be or where it is, and you'll see them on buoy zone, like relative to where buoy zone's saying it should be. So they'll often go there and they'll be like, oh, I'm here, I'm on the mark now. And you're like, wow, that's way off where it should be. It's obviously dragged. Or they go to where Mark 1 is, Mark 1A should be, for example, on buoy zone, because they can see that as well. And tell you what obviously they're seeing, which might be like, there's no mark here kind of thing. So often it gets done by like somebody's watching where the mark boat is, and it updates every 15 seconds, like its location. So as they start slowing down, it becomes pretty obvious where they are. But adding hardware to marks would let you potentially see where they are independently of anything else at a frequency to be determined, but it requires probably a cellular connection, another piece of hardware. You know, is it charged? Oh no, it's not, it's flat, they didn't do it last night. You know, for all the reasons that you want to make life easier, you can also, you know, introduce a complexity which, you know, is another job for somebody, right? It's another thing that you guys bring the marks back, somebody's got to take the things off, they've got to charge them, you know, they've got to do something with them. You're sort of weighing these things up, right?
Alex, we chat to you all day, mate. You're a really interesting guy, and I do really thank you for your time. It's been fantastic, and a round of applause for Alex. Thank you, buddy. All the best.
Thank you. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your evening, and thank you for the time.
Feels good. Thank you. Cheers, buddy.
Cheers. Bye.
Rightio, might just have a couple-minute break while we get ourselves sorted. Just a quick break, have a glass of water when we need, refreshment, and Dino. Well, talk about that for us. Well, that's pretty amazing, wasn't it? So much going on. And hopefully, and I'm sorry if it was a little long for those that don't use Boyzone, but it may have triggered something to say that maybe I should use Boyzone. Let's try it out. If you haven't done it, it's pretty amazing.
Especially the boys on seminars that have used all the features.
Yeah, wow. Okay, here we go. Bouncy calls. Let's go. Thank you, Dino.
All right. All right. Thanks, everybody. Yeah, we're running a bit ahead behind time. And Steve asked me, "Hey, Dino, can you just do 5 to 10 minutes on race sense?" So I look at the agenda. I've got half an hour. So anyway, we'll see if we make up a bit of time. Now, just going back to that last thing with Boyzone, we're talking about AI. If you've got ChatGPT, there is a little like a sub chapter or something they call it on the race rules of sailing assistant, and in there you can then go and ask a whole pile of questions about the racing rules and scenarios and bits and pieces, and it'll tell you what rules apply in that particular scenario and what have you. So that's worth having a bit of a look at if you've got ChatGPT, which is free.
Sorry, we didn't do spell check.
Didn't do spell check?
Sorry.
Steve
Carl, is it?
All right. I didn't do that. So anyway, there we go. All right, race sense. So what is it? It's a requires two types of devices. Basically, it's a GPS tracking system. So what we're talking about in the last session was about tracking boats. Well, essentially what this is it's a boat tracking system. So that what you see on the right-hand side is a Vacross Atlas 2 unit that you have on each boat. It's typically on the mast, and it also provides all the sailors with their general sailing data. So, their upwind speed, upwind angles, downwind speeds, their VMG, the heel, compass heading, all this sort of stuff. So, you'll see on a lot of boats, there are other systems around. Vacross does, the same sort of thing. So just as a system without using race sense, it's actually quite a good system just for, sailing your boat. These devices also have like a Wi-Fi mesh, so they're actually talking to each other all the time, and they're talking back to the start boat. And through that through that system, you then can have all the devices monitored from the Race Sense tablet. So the tablet there, you can actually see where all the boats are, and you can also then run races. You can actually send messages to all the devices and what have you. So we've got a couple of close-in slides on that. So for the sailors, what they get on their screen, they get when they first get into the racing area, they'll see a message pull up on their device saying you've just joined the network. When we get into a start sequence, and when we decide, okay, we've got a start sequence that's going to happen in 10 minutes time, a message will pop up and saying, okay, we've got a new start sequence, and then they'll get a countdown timer on their device as well as their sailing data. So they can see exactly what's going on. If they're OCS, they'll get the OCS up on the screen with a red bar at the top saying they're OCS, and when they finally get back to the other side of the line, then they'll get a clear up on the screen, and off they can go sailing. So they're getting all this data basically from the Race Sense system. And one of the advantages for from a sailor's perspective is that back in the day, all the boats, when the start line was set, and all the guys with their GPSs, keel boats particularly, they go up and ping the start boat, and they all procession down and go and ping the mark. So if you then go and change your mark, then they've all got to go and ping the mark, and they've already got the technology. A lot of the keel boats have their technology on their boats. So what this does is that we have one of these devices on the start pole, and we have one of these devices on the pin or the pin boat. And so this is all transmitted to them. So the guys know how far they are away from the line. They can work out how quickly, sailing wise, how far they're from the line and all the rest of it. So it stops that procession of boats having to go and ping each of the marks. They don't have to try and get a transit. And also with this system, if you've got a class that decides they don't want to have this technology, and all you want it for is timing, you can actually lock it down. So you can lock down a lot of the technology so that they don't have the distance to line, the speeds, time to line, or whatever else that there is available on the system. So from a race officer perspective, the system, what it can do is it'll call the OCS. So it will know exactly where each boat is in relation to the line and the time to the line. Through this, you don't have boats hiding behind other boats at the start time. So you might be able to only see, say, 3 boats out of 6 that might be across the line. Every boat that knows exactly where they are and will actually know whether they're OCS or not. So this reduces the propensity of general recalls, and also it can be used for doing your finishes and tracking the races. What's the accuracy there? We'll get onto that in the next slide, Steve. So with this, all the boats will stipulate in your sailing instructions where the device has got to sit, which is typically on the mast, and also the profile of the boat is put into the system, so it knows the shape of the boat. So when I've practiced this on land, with a couple of devices out here. So we've had a device, the start boat here and the pin boat over there. I'm on a J70. I know it's a 2.5 metre offset between me and my bow. So as I'm walking around, if I point at the start line, it will tell me how much distance I am to the line. If I then turn around 90 degrees to the line, I'll actually reduce the distance to the line because it knows the profile of the boat. So all this stuff is going on at the moment, is being calculated. So you can see here in this diagram, you've got the blue boat is OCS. He's pointing away from the line. You can see where his mast is. It's actually not near the line. It's pointing away, but it knows where the back of the boat is. And likewise, the right-hand boat is OCS. It knows where the bow is, with the offset and all the rest of it. So the GPS system that they use is a more advanced dual band GPS system. So typically a lot of GPS systems are good for about 2 meters. So they're claiming, and by the way, I don't work for Vaporos, I'm just practiced with it. I've used it a few times. So they claim that, about half a metre accuracy with that. Now, all these devices are talking to each other every half a second or so. So there's this Wi-Fi mesh going on. So ultimately, all the information is being broadcast, back to the race control, device. So here is the RO interface. So there's a bunch of information we've got on here. So on the top left-hand corner of the screen, we've got the time of day, and we've also got the countdown to the start, or the scheduled time of the start. On the top right-hand corner, you can actually dim the screen just by pressing that little cog icon. The idea with that is that the app's still running, so it's still collecting all the data and making sure everything's updated. There's a little tower icon there as well, which is useful to make sure that all your race management devices are active and online. In the middle area here, you can see the boats that are registered in the system, what their current speed is, and we can also see here that the blue icons, the blue icons are showing that these guys are currently online. The red icon is that he's been online just recently, but he's just dropped off. He might have gone too far away. And then the grey icon down the bottom is he's been out of range for over a minute, or if there's a slash through it, it means he hasn't joined the network yet today. So you can then sort of work out which boats have been to the starting area and which boats haven't been to the starting area. On the right hand side, when you get into a start sequence, you can see what flags are actually active, which ones are about to come up and which ones are about to come down. Now this has got this diagram here has got the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 countdown sequence, but you can go back, you can use your standard flags, and you can also use a blue Peter, U flag, black flag. There is some beeping, there is some countdown. It's not talking, but there is beeping, so you can sort of see when you're getting down in that sequence. Yeah, you can get Karen on that. So you've got your flag sequences. You can customize that. You can also do it for a 3-minute start sequence as well as a 5-minute start sequence. And then the bottom left-hand, on the left-hand side, you can actually see the layout of your course, where your boats are, and where they're moving. And also they'll have some snail trails there for about a minute, so you can see where boats are going and where they're moving and what have you. It will also give you information on the line, so the length of the line, the bearing, and also what the line is square to, which direction of breeze the line is square to. So if, for instance, we've set we've got a top mark at 90 degrees, you can see here it's currently a little bit of bias on the line, and you can then work out what you want to do with all that. The race action button down the bottom there you can use to start a sequence, postpone, do a general recall, or an abandonment. So all those those there are relatively straightforward to do. So the way how it works is in the morning, if all your devices are all charged up, you start up the network. Once you're out on the water, you could validate to make sure that all your race management devices are active, and then as boats come out to the water, you'll see them all starting to dial in, connect in. So the race committee starts the timers. You can view the locations of the boats, and then when the race is underway, you can see which boats are OCS. And then as they come back across the line, their OCS status will change from being a red OCS to a grey, so they've cleared the line and off you go. And as I said before, you can AP a sequence, abandon, or do a general recall. So in this picture here, we can see quite a few boats are sort of right on the the starting line. You can see about 6-7 boats there are in red OCS, and one of them's gone back. When it's time to finish a race, you can toggle on the finish line. So you might have a finish line on the other side of the boat, or you might have a finish line which is on the same side as the start. You can configure that, and then as boats come through the line, their times will be automatically recorded. Sorry about that, I've got a bit of a tickle in my throat. But still, we've had a few issues along the way where nothing better than sitting down, writing all the boats as they come through, taking their times and making sure that you don't trust the technology 100%. There's also an offline viewers mode, which I haven't trialed out yet, but there's apparently you can set up a web link so people can actually watch boats on the course, sailing up the course, and away you go. Now, my experience with this is that these devices with their Wi-Fi mesh are good for up to about a mile. Maybe if you had a longer course and you want to be able to see what's going on, you might need to have say a jury boat or a course boat, pin boat, maybe stationed halfway up the leg to sort of help do the repeating of the Wi-Fi network. That's something that could be looked at as well. So if you wanted to do a live broadcast of progress of races, etc., then that's a possibility. So the equipment, what do we need? So each yacht needs a Vacross Atlas II device mounted on a fixed position on a boat, typically specified in the sailing instructions, so you notice the race, so that people are putting stuff on at the mast, not on the stern. The race management device is either an Atlas II or an Edge, which is a little bit more of a dumbed down, cheaper version. You need one on your start pole. You need one on your finish pin or pin boat. There's another device which acts as a coordinator with the tablet. So basically these 3 devices. If you wanted to have a separate pin for your finish mark, then you need another device for that. Or if the finish line's on the other side of the boat, then you need one on your blue pole as well. So anywhere between 3 and 5 devices, as well as a tablet that they'll provide, which is a Samsung tablet. And also, you'll just need some additions to the sailing instructions to bring this in, so that it's so I've got an example of some of the sailing instructions there, so that they get incorporated into your racing. The only other thing really, from an organisational perspective is at registration time, you'll need to get your competitors to come along with their unit. I'm not quite sure if you can quite see that image on the right-hand side, but when you press the initial power button, it'll come up with the registration information for the unit. That will tell you what the firmware version is. So it's very important to have all the devices on a set level of firmware for your event, so you're all on the same level of firmware. It's relatively straightforward to update the firmware. So either the registration people can update the firmware for the owner, or the owner can update the firmware with the app. There's also a QR code there as well, which you use the app. You use the app on the tablet. At registration time, you scan the QR code. That will then bring in the device's ID into the system, and then away then it's registered, ready to sail. So that's basically the registration process. So it's relatively straightforward. It's a bit of an extract of some of the additional clauses that have been put into various sailing instructions. Relatively straightforward. There's not particularly difficult. The last clause there is a bit of a get out of jail clause, which is in these instructions, code flag golf was used to basically pull the pin on Vacaros, and we just go back to regular starting sequences. Any questions?
Cost, tell everyone what it's cost.
What's the cost? Well, there's two aspects to the cost, I guess. One is a lot of boats will use, something like a Vacaros, or they might use a tactic, or they might use a bunch, various other type of, devices, so they're getting their sailing data. But I understand the cost for the Atlas 2 is about $1,800, $1,500 to $1,800, dollars. So it's not cheap.
Is that per boat or?
That's per device.
Per device.
Yeah. Now the Atlas, the other device, the
Race management.
the other race management ones, I believe they're about $1,000 or maybe $800. So it's a different.
It's not a tablet looking thing.
So it comes with a tablet, and then you get say 3 devices for your start line. One for your start pole, your pin, and the race control device.
Can they be rented?
Yeah, they can be. So the Australian distributor is Harkin. So they're organising with events to provide them at a, I think it's a $30 per day fee. Now there's also some talk about Vacaros changing their model as well, so that there will be an annual regatta fee. But I believe they're still working through that. So there's been a bit of pushback, with that. So that's something that, it's currently being worked on.
Who else has actually used the system in the room? Anyone else use the system? The boys
We go up that high.
have used the system. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I've used it down at Blairgowrie and up at Sandringham for a couple of events.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but this at the moment, my exposure really is because the J70s, as a class, as an association, want to use this. Going forward, they've just had the J70 Worlds over in Europe, where they had 93 boats on the start line using the system. It all went very, very well, apparently. So,
How would it go with the split start line?
a split start line. That'd be very interesting. Is there a need for a split start line?
Well, the question is, if you've got 100 boats.
Yep.
Would you put a centre line boat, and then that mean that the start line may not be straight, or would you, or does it remove the need for a centre line boat?
Well, I think it removes the need for a centre line boat, because they used it with the J70s, 93 boats in Europe. There was a single start line there.
So what was the start line mean?
That I don't know.
So J70, so that's sort of 7 metres times 700. So looking at about a 900 metre start line.
Yeah, must be.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it?
It's a range.
Yeah, that's right.
So one of the things they're looking at doing is one of the enhancements they're looking at doing is putting the devices on pop marks and gates, and also be able to use that to help resolve issues in the 3 boat zone. So if there's issues with sort of jury and sort of challenges about where the boats are in the zone when they're doing doing their thing, that's something that they're one of the features they're looking at enhancing.
Right, yeah.
You say 0.5 meter accuracy. What's the minimum and maximum accuracy? Like, I mean, 0.5 is maybe the average, but how big can it be, and does the system actually, how big, like, how big that? Yeah, you're almost 2 meters.
Yeah, no, I don't believe so.
Okay, but like, do you think the specific thing what is it, like, same 0.5, but is that likely to be bigger or smaller?
I don't have any stats on that accuracy.
Well, it's like, well, the race officer's not quite dispensed with yet.
Yeah.
Because it's a half a metre, I mean, we all ping people who are over the line half a metre. We ping people who are over the line this far, so.
Yeah. Oh,
About a metre.
I guess my
About a
final,
metre. Think of about a metre.
we can get to sub centimetre with the right technology, but most GPS systems in my kind of would, it varies probably a couple meters to 6. I'm wondering the specific technology.
Oh, we were told 1 metre.
right. Okay. Yeah, 4.
I found is the accuracy is bigger, but the relative accuracy, if you're out in the plane, you usually get about 11 satellites. And if every device is getting the same satellites, they're all going to come up, they're all doing the same calculations, they're all going to come up with the same answer. So they might not be able to say we're going to sit in this seat or that seat, but if the relative accuracy between the two of them, I think it's pretty accurate. I've seen like lasers go around top marks on, and they are one after the other, exactly the same. And you get a Sydney 60 lasers across the line, and this is 10-year-old technology, I guess. And 60 lasers across this line down in the Yes, the guy, Sky Stan, he does all the America's car and all the South TV stuff. So he stuff on NASCARs. The way they did it, all the cars would talk to one another, deciding which ones have got, once you've got all the same satellites, they do your calculations now. So he found that if you've all got the same satellites, then your accuracy is, your relative accuracy is going to be the same. You're all doing the same.
Yeah, I don't know if I've missed something. Is this the end of the general recall?
Yeah, it's debatable really, because you might decide you want to do a general recall because maybe the wind shifted 10 degrees to the left just before the start. Maybe you can AP it at that point in time. Maybe you might think, well, it's actually not fair. We had one situation down at Blairgowrie with the States. There was, it had shifted a fair bit to the left. There were a lot of boats over at the start. So we'll just let them go. They all know. And then after a little while, the RO was uncomfortable with that decision. So we abandoned the start and we abandoned the race. Tap, 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 abandoned. All the boats got the message up on the screen, race abandoned. So everybody came back and did it again. So I guess at the end of the day, it's all in the control of the race officer and whether they want to be belligerent and say, okay, we'll just go with the technology, or whether they decide to do a general recall or do something. But I think if everything was all perfect and everything was fine, and the course is set properly and it was all fair for everybody, and then there's a bunch of people decided to go anyway, well then maybe you just let it run and the people wear the penalty.
Great answer.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a big problem, isn't it? It really is. Where is it going? And do we want to? It's a bit like going. Where's all the gone to, and where's the skill gone to? But this just takes it to a different level. And we don't all have to be there, but maybe it's all moving, good or bad, it's moving. So it is what it is. Yeah. Any other question?
When you buy a unit, Yachty buys a unit, is it fixed what boat that can go on, or can he says, oh, next week I'll start my RS 100, so I'll change it from an actual to an RS 100?
Yeah, I believe
that's programmable by the owner of the device.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I believe so. You can, and in the configuration of the device, you can put in what device, what type of boat you are, and also that can be overridden by the race committee as well. So when you register your device to to the tablet for an event, then your boat's no longer a Sabre, it's actually a J70 or whatever it might be. So, that can be overridden to make sure that people can't. And all these changes apparently are auditable, so you can actually see where things have all been set and changed. So if there's any dispute, you can go back to the device and download. The jury could have a look at what the the audit trail is to make sure that settings haven't been changed and what have you.
So then on that start line, we can have multi-classes and crew.
Well, I suppose you could if you, but look, the only time I've used this is for an event that of a one design class, and I haven't looked at how you could do multiple starts. If you wanted to split it, a fleet up into different fleets and what have you, and even at Sandringham where we might have J24s and J70s, and you want to do different starts. Well, how does that? I don't know how that would work with multiple start lines or start sequences and that sort of thing. At the moment, it's what I've seen really is just single fleet racing.
Any other thoughts? You're with it or you against it? We'll move along with it. Great. Thank you, Dean. Great work, mate. Great work. Now we have, I've got the national officiating update with Sarah Ogilvie. So I'll just push that arrow. It should just do for me. Look at that. So Sarah, Head of Sport Development Growth for Australian Sailing.
Thank you.
All yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi everyone, and thank you for having me. So I know many of you in the room, obviously for a very long time, but for those of you who don't know me, I'm Sarah Ogilvie. I now work for Australian Sailing. I've sailed for many, many years and coached as well, but I now work for Australian Sailing, and my role at Australian Sailing is I do a lot of the oversee all of the education and training for officials, coaches, and instructors. I also oversee the development all of the programs that Australian Sailing offer, so all of the Discover Sailing Centre programs and all of the coaching programs that clubs and classes deliver. And then I also oversee diversity, equity and inclusion, and where we focus on underrepresented groups, for example, women and girls programs or youth development programs. So that's my role. And then I have great people in the team who then help to do the work in those areas of expertise. To get to my team, I'm here tonight because Michael Arnold is unwell, and he is now leading the officiating space for Australian Sailing, and I'm going to work out how we go to the next slide. Good. So I just thought I'm just going to give you an update on the work that we've been doing, particularly around officiating, but also a lot of this applies across the board. So just for those, I know there's a few of you in the room that hold many hats. You might be officials here, but you're also, I can see club and class management, and also Discover Sailing Centre principals here. So a lot of this work covers across the space. So just about 12 to 15 months ago, we introduced the Instructor Coach Official Development Strategy. You can find that on the website under the strategy tab. So I'm not going to run through it all now, but the key things out of that strategy was that we, before the strategy went out, we surveyed all instructors, coaches, officials to learn about what was needed and the future. And then we came up with 4 focus areas, which is accreditation is accessible. It's about connection and collaboration. We're focusing on the future, and we're thinking of the person first. So putting people first. That has guided, those focus areas then have guided some actions, and we've started those actions over, really started that this year. One wasn't to change wasn't changing staff, but we have had a change of staff this year, which is Michael's jumped into the role. You will have seen that, I can't remember the month, but the officials hub has gone live. We've updated sort of how you can access resources through the officials hub. Hopefully that's been trimmed back and simplified so that if you're new to officiating, you can find your way through and learn about officiating and then find the resources you need. But that hub has been updated. As I said, a lot of these updates that are going on will be applied to other areas, other roles. So next year, we hope that the instructor coach hub, for example, will then be updated as well. A couple of other things from this year. We've had 5% of growth in officiating. So in terms of attending the courses and completing the courses, that's been a good growth number for Victoria this year. And the main piece that I'm going to talk about here today as well is that we've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes for the development of the learning management system. So we offer a lot of e-learning. I'm about to go through things on a whiteboard and I feel a little bit inadequate when we've had all these amazing technology presented and I'm about to go onto a whiteboard. But we have been doing a lot of work behind the scenes to build all of our move our e-learning courses. And I'm going to get to that in a moment.
So before you go, how did you measure the VIX growth of 5%?
Attendance.
When we all know is that the changing of the rules for accreditation for race officials has actually gone down.
So we've measured the attendance at the courses in Victoria, and also the attendance or the numbers who have completed the e-learning.
So all the people that were in that group, a lot of them dropped out of it. So the top number, the baseline, has probably gone down, not up.
Which group are we talking about?
Officiating.
Which official? Or can I?
Race management officiating.
Sorry, clarification. Would the increased growth, could that be related to the fact that the new programs have come out, so a lot of previous people who may have had higher qualification finally completed that, or would it be completely separate and those people have been disqualified from that count?
No one's been removed from account. This is new accreditations in Victoria.
Anyone who had any previous prior accreditation before up to any standard or any level, when they've gone through and completed any of the new programs that have been initiated and launched by Australian Sailing, that would now be counted towards the number of people that have been completing qualifications this year.
Can I get to the new things in a moment? Because we're about to get to the new things, which will then, at the moment, everyone's had extensions. So for whilst we're doing development work, and the 5% growth is in terms of the accreditations that people have attended this year.
How do we fare against other states, Sarah?
Don't know the stats off the top of my head for that one, but Ben might. Oh, I'm putting you on the spot, Ben. But no, I don't have those on hand. Yep. So, can I continue? And then if we've got questions, yep. So I'm going to try and wheel the whiteboard over because I will speak to it because it's very small. So the work that what we've been doing, and this does, as I said, applies across all workforce, and it will include club and class management as well, where we're developing education and training for sort of those future committees that are coming on board. The work we've been doing, we're moving from one learning management system to another. That's the simplest term. And we're moving to the sports mission. So what we're doing going forward is that there's a lot of things that are required to do, whether you volunteer, coach, instruct, or officiate. So I'm just going to talk through sort of what the future looks like. And the reason it's on a whiteboard is that we haven't got to the printed material yet. What I'm talking through tonight is from March next year, fingers crossed, we're going to be able to uplift our the education or modernise our education and training and a lot of our e-learning. For officiating, all of the e-learning that's currently online, so all of the learning that you learn through the current system, it will look different from March 2025, but the content won't be any different. So first phase, we're going through phases to deliver this huge project. And as I said, this is across all workforce. The content and officiating will, look different, but the content is the same. So it looks different, but the content's the same. What will be different is that you'll go into a learning centre straight through Rev Sport, so we don't have to go onto separate logins. There's the opportunity to do some essential skills that the Sports Commission now cover for people who are new to officiating. They may have never officiated before. They might be a 14-year-old, a 15-year-old, and there's essential, let's call it essential skills about communication, teamwork, various safeguarding, understanding roles, responsibilities. So there's some essential skills sort of e-learning in there. And there's also some possibly, and I'm not going to say it's going to happen, but there's possibly some required learning depending on your role in the sport that you might need to do, for example, the Sport Integrity Australia Safeguarding e-learning course. And a lot of these are bite-sized sort of short courses. I've put them at the bottom because that applies to anybody, any role, anything you do. With Australian Sailing, once you've done it once, doesn't matter what hat you've got on, you don't have to do it again. We then have the opportunities. We're moving over the mark layer, the start finish, scorer handicapper, and as I said, not everything's built yet, and there will be phases. So we're moving this content over, and the process committee, we're moving this content over. It will look different, but it's the same content. Anyone who has currently the club race officer through till the middle of 2025, all of those people holding that certificate will then automatically be acknowledged with the experience and learning they've already done, and they will be granted all of these certifications. As I said, some of them yet haven't been built, and so that will happen in phase 2. It applies to each sort of discipline as such. So protest committee, again, when we roll it over, the certification doesn't get lost. It'll be reapplied. It'll look different. The intention going forward is that all of the base level is online. We will build further in phases 2 and 3 as we go through. We'll build further learning online for roles that happen. One learning for me today was, for example, mark layer. The current mark layer course could look very different when we get to phase 2. Hearing what what we've heard tonight. There's a layer in here where Australian Sailing, and sorry it was green, it looked fine when I wrote it up, but it says club class induction. There's induction resources for clubs and classes to deliver then their own training that's appropriate to the environment that they are delivering the sport. That applies for officials and it applies for instructors, coaches, where there's already resources that were released sort of 12 months to 18 months ago for the workforce. For example, whether it's officials or instructors, you've done some e-learning or you've done some training, and then the club runs their annual induction training, or every 6 months they might run their induction training for officials or for their instructors and coaches, where we've developed resources covering the various areas that we recommend clubs and classes induct their workforce into, and that those resources are available on the Australian Sailing website. And then from here, really nothing above here is changing. In this March in this March period. But I just wanted to sort of run you through what's coming in 2025, which is the modernised e-learning space, and it will come out in phases. The other things that are coming in 2025 is we run training and focus events, we call them, where we come together in each state and there's development opportunities for, well, we've run it for instructors in the past, and this year we're starting training and focus for officials. That will be, it's currently in its thought bubble stage, like we've thought about it, we know we're doing it. Michael will work with some members of the National Race Officials Committee, have put up their hands and said they're happy to help design what those days look like. And what will happen, very similar to this, but there'll be a whole day in each state and they'll in each region, and they will be delivered locally. So what I would love to use this opportunity is to encourage you to bring 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 of your members who currently officiate or are very interested in getting more and more involved and have shown an interest or have stepped on and helped out already. We'd love to see some young officials as well. So please bring those people along. The intention is that will be about August, September next year. Those events will happen nationally around the country. I missed one, sorry. We're looking, as I said, we're trying to make sort of accreditation more accessible. Michael's starting to look at the re-accreditation, to look at my notes, but to look at options rather than so there's options for re-accreditation. We're doing the same in the coach instructor space, and we want to create some consistency across the board. But so that's in its initial thoughts and review stage, but we hope that next in 2025 that's coming. And the final thing that is coming with, we've put a submission into, so for the last couple of years, I meet regularly with Yachting New Zealand, and we talk about how we can work together, and so does Emma. We talk about how we can work together to get the best out of the sort of where we are in our location. And we've agreed that we take it in turns to host world sailing seminars. And so this year, New Zealand hosted a race management seminar, and then next year, 2025, we hope that we will host a international judge seminar. We've applied to World Sailing for that, and then there will be the next discipline as we go into 2026. So that's pretty much in a quick nutshell the summary of sort of what's been happening behind the scenes and where we're looking to for 2025. And yeah, open to the floor if you have questions. Or...
I have one sec. Yeah. You're talking about clubs doing this induction or whatever to try and get, what's the process? So how is Australian Sailing going to get into the clubs to get that done? Because I know a lot of clubs across the state do not do that. And the question is, what is the process for that to be done?
For the process for the clubs or for Australian Sailing?
Australian Sailing to get involved. If the clubs aren't doing that, any that induction or what you're talking about before, to try and get people involved. I guess across any skill level, they go out and do what they have to do, and you want the clubs to get involved to do some induction. How is Australian Sailing going to get down to the clubs to get them to do this induction? Well,
the support team would be out there talking to the clubs, the committees, and all the management of the clubs about these resources. We do.
How is Australian Sailing going to get to the clubs to do that?
By going, do you mean that the club visit? I'm not sure where you're going with.
Well, we've got 150 clubs in Victoria.
I think we have 89. Yeah.
So how is Australian Sailing going to get to those clubs? Because sending an email out does not work.
No, and so the club support team do go out to and visit. My understanding, they visit every club.
Well, I remember Black Rock and never seen anyone down at Black Rock.
So one of the things I can't comment on I know their goals and their KPIs are to meet with every club, and absolutely we are here to help. I mean, you know me.
I know.
We're here to help clubs and the important thing to know, and if people aren't reading their emails, this is exactly why one reason it's a great opportunity to come face to face as well to talk about these things. Because if people don't read emails, hopefully we can cover it off. Some people on social media, some people, like we promote these things on social media, but I'm not on social media. So how do, so we speak about it. To answer your question though, or to comment, the clubs that I've been part of do deliver these inductions and have great training processes. So these, but I don't know. What I would encourage is that the clubs who do it have good results and their volunteers feel competent and capable and confident to go out and deliver safe, fun, fair racing. And the same thing applies. It doesn't matter whether it's officiating, instructing or coaching. The same, the process is there, and those clubs do deliver the same for that sector of the workforce. I can't speak for Black Rock though. So.
Black Rock, Marlins.
And it's best practice that this is, you want to have education from your club about the local environment and what's expected of you when you're volunteering at your club. So
if I can say, I think so many Victorians see Australian sailing as so Sydney centric. We don't trust a lot of what's offered, and we seem to be more cousins.
I hope not, because I'm not from Sydney. I'm not from Sydney. I'm from down the other end of. I'm from beautiful Mount Arthur, and a lot of my team is not Sydney. I've got one person in my team that's from Sydney, and 3 from Victoria, and 1 from South Australia. So I'm not sure where that. I can't connect. I'm local.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just saying perception of Australian sailing.
Maybe it's the team.
About
maybe it's the team's phone number. The team's phone number throws everyone out.
Can I give some feedback?
Yeah.
So I'm from Williamstown Sailing Club. And so my club race officer accreditation was turned out window. And then we got a reinstatement. And I went through the 2 modules for race committee and finished online even. And after that, I went, if I give this to a new young person coming through, they're going to fail. And I looked at the content and I went, this doesn't teach the nuancing of being a race officer and start to finish. So I've got 2 young people in my club who became one's instructor. Another person's just on the learn to sail. They landed on a race committee boat and they found their Zen moment in the countdown time. They're like, oh, I love this. Can I come out more often? Yep. So what I'm doing is I'm taking them both through start boat as much as I can, finishing procedure as much as I can. Then I'm going to say to them, now go and here's an 8-point module. Go and try and pass it. And I reckon they're going to fail. Because if you don't have that experience under your belt, you're not going to take in what's taught over video. You're not going to learn the subtleties of what you need to know as a race officer for when to AP in the last minute. You're going to know the theory, you're going to learn, oh, this is an AP for this reason. But that experience, you really need that experience at club level.
Absolutely, and that's exactly this case.
The other part we need to add is, so every piece, every regatta I do, I haven't got a logbook electronically of all my experience. So, you know, for me to go, I've got to write down a piece of paper now and then show it to somebody and say, hey, I've been at all these, I've been probably 15, 20 academics since 2011. So there's 10 years of experience that's not recorded anywhere other than me writing it down. And so you've got someone that's a club race officer could probably step up. But I'm like, am I going to go through all my history? And for club level, how are we going to develop essential skills without that log? How are you going to build the skill set without knowing, okay, there's a pathway for gig for instructors, but what's the pathway for race officers? Where's it clear about what's the basic skill set you need?
Yeah. I mean, I think I can't answer all the questions right now.
That's what you need to find out.
I think, to be fair, so where we're going with that is you've got 4 years to log all your experiences, and you'll log them down to whatever sheet pro forma you want to use. But
Oh, spreadsheet. I was going to say that, but I thought you.
so if we go even on Race Officials Victoria, we may be able to get something off the Facebook site maybe there.
That's
Something
yeah,
there.
it's
So
already
you
on
might
the
be able
website.
to put it together a log, might post a log on that.
There's
Jump on
always
there.
a spreadsheet on the website.
But otherwise, yeah, spreadsheet on the website.
I'm just conscious that there's been a question over the.
Yeah, Dave.
Is, you know, how many people are supporting Victorian clubs, right, in Victoria, supporting Victorian clubs, and is that sufficient for Victorian clubs? Is that what they expect? Because I think that if there are many people, it's probably not quite what they expect. Right? Off the market,
It's as is nationally, so it's. I mean, Ben, if you'd like to comment, but it's we have.
So I'll just maybe help.
Yeah.
So my name's Ben Callard. I'm the SLT with Sarah. Sarah's responsible for the sort of participation and growth. I'm responsible for the support, so the club support, class support, and recently picked up some event work as well with Emma, who's our national event manager. And also, I'm based in Brisbane, so not Sydney centric at all. Emma's based in Canberra. Our team is very diverse around the country. Our board members represent, come from 6 different states, and there's another SLT member, so 3 or 4 out of the 7 are not from Sydney. So we're very sort of nationwide spread. In terms of the support team here in Canberra, we've got, sorry, Victoria, we've got 3 full-time club support officers here in Victoria, plus Sarah, who works locally here, who assists in visiting clubs, plus Kate Hyde, who works locally here assisting clubs as well, plus Sue Phillips, who works here, who also visits and assists clubs. So the opportunity to get out and meet clubs is readily available. We're very open to being invited. If there's the best opportunity to come to a club, we're happy to be there at the best time. But quite often the team are working in the background with different club volunteers or different staff and aren't going to be there visible to everybody, but they will be there, and they have visited all of the clubs across Victoria in the last 12 months.
You will stay on, sort of initiating programs that are originally going to just make available to developing nations. Now they've made available to everybody. I just wondering if there's any update and what's the status sailing doing about that, how it's going to fit in.
Yeah, I about 6 or 8 months ago, I met with World Sailing New Zealand, and I met with World Sailing to talk about that. They didn't think it was appropriate for what we have in place. They didn't think their program was sufficient. So that's where it landed. Yeah. Sorry.
I'm the former appointed body of over Western Port, and Western Port yacht club seem to be dropping out of Australian sailing. their attitude is that they're not getting support. They're paying fees to Aussie Sailing for silver cards that they don't get the benefit of. It's a bit of a concern, especially in Western Quarters. Hastings got to a point where they'll dropped out. Will's talking about it. Members of the board questioning why we pay for it and what do we get from Aussie Sailing, especially when we don't get contact. What numbers are saying with Australian Sailing? Are people clubs joining? Are they leaving, or associations getting on board? Is it stagnant? So I know you've got 5% increase in officiating, but what about clubs retaining membership?
Maybe I can give you my contact details and we can talk separately so that this can remain on officials. But in terms of membership growth, nationally we've had 7.9% membership growth across the country, about 14.6% growth in burn to sale participants. In Victoria, we've had 3% growth in membership across the clubs and 11% growth in the burn to sale participants. So there's continued year-on-year growth in membership. We realise that that's not all clubs. We realise that some clubs are stagnant or even declining. There are those clubs, but overall the sport is moving forward. But I'm very happy to talk to you either afterwards or at another time maybe about the affiliation stuff. Very happy to have that conversation.
I've got a question about the paperwork you have to fill in to get accredited or re-accredited. You're filling in your paperwork as a person requesting accreditation, and my understanding is we can't online have then someone accredit us fill in the same form, but it's a PDF that's not editable. You can't have put in your content online. And does that make sense?
Not really, but
What are you talking about? These practical assessment form that's been done for measurements. So I guess it was initially designed to be something that you take to an event and to assess it, to fill out a course of a regatta and sign and back to when you upload it. So at the time of the regatta, it may not be convenient to do all that paperwork because the person assessing you may be having to be ready to go to the progress committee or do something else. So if two people could fill it in online as a editable PDF, it would be much easier for people trying to get
we in terms of the re-accreditation, they are things that we are working towards, that it can be done through the online. Yes.
Yes, but if they design it as an editable one for across Australia,
we are looking at digital solutions so that we're not on paper and on one.
Means you don't have to use paper.
So is there any planned activity in that measuring area? Because they certainly, my experience with international classes is that they are nowhere near that big learning and the record keeping.
Yeah.
The shoebox full of measurement certificates and things like that.
Yeah. It's a vacant, that the intention is yes. So we are moving a whole space, not just officiating. So we're doing it in phases. We're moving it, and then we're looking to ensure that it's understood and it's, I don't know, equal isn't the right word, but it's the same across the board at that stage of development or that stage. So you should see consistency, and that's where we plan to go.
But it's running and sale courses face to face. Use plans to
State officer, each state officer will the actual courses. So you've got people who want to do stuff as well. Usually that's the day one of the speak to the state office to get a course arrangement.
Yeah, and it was just made a point. Whilst like we were sitting here looking at a screen watching someone speak to us, we could have all been at home sort of watching, but nothing beats being in a room together as well. And so whilst we say this is all e-learning, there's nothing stops you from saying, hey, can you come, Australian Sailing, can you come and deliver? Or can we work with you and deliver this face-to-face at our club and deliver some training for our officials or as we would for instructors, for example. So the material's there, and that's what we can do and work with you. It's always been available.
Thank you, Sarah.
So,
Very good. So anyone else? Have a chat with Sarah afterwards. Thank you, Sarah. Excellent. I know. All right. Now, next one, we've got changes to the racing rules of sailing, 25, 28, that affect race officers. And here we go. All over to you, B. Thank you.
Thank you. So I've got 30 seconds to explain the new changes to the racing rules. And I'm acutely conscious that a few of us in here have got the Sail Melbourne Race Committee meeting in 12 hours' time. I'm sorry? Okay. The good news is there's not too many changes that affect race officers. So we're only talking about race officers here. So we don't go into section 2, we don't go into section 4. Definitions, signals, 1, 3, 5, 6 and 7. But there's not a lot in there. And in many cases, it's really just changing the words to make them, my original understanding was to make them be able to be translated into Portuguese and other languages like that. Now I understand it so Alexander's AI can understand better how the racing rules work and can give us a better result. But anyway, that's where we're going. We all know the rules get updated every 4 years to time to the Olympic quad. During those 4 years, submissions come in from member national authorities and others around the world, and they get compiled. And so there's 4 chunks of those submissions. And to go with those are the yellow papers from World Sailing, who review those submissions, amend them, throw them out, or incorporate them. So if you go into the World Sailing website, there is a whole bunch of resources there around the new rules. The new rules were live there in July of this year. You could have had a look at them then. But also in there, if you want to dig in and say, why did this change come about? If you go back to those submission papers, which are referenced in the marked up version of the new rules, and the yellow folders, that will explain why they did what they did. But as I said, the good news is that for us, there's not a lot of changes. Now, they said that when this comes out in July, have a look at it. It's not going to change. You'll get the hard copies at the end of the year once the casebook's done. They lied. There's already been an urgent change put into the new racing rules. So if anybody's got the RYA copy of the rules, which has already been published and printed, you'll have to make this change to it. It's a judgy type thing. What I understand it was under the way these rules were changed, the triangle above the start line under a Z, U or black flag start could have been considered an obstruction, and therefore you'd have to be given room to be not pushed over the line under a U flag, which was never the intention. So they had to reword that to get that out of the way. But this is actually a change made, and some of you might have copies that will have to have that amended. In race signals, there was a change. This is one I'm not a fan of. Under the current rules, N over A, N over H gets everybody off the water. All races are abandoned, whether you're halfway up the first beat, in the sequence, or waiting your turn. They've now changed that, and it's only races that are in progress are abandoned for all those 3 signals. So when we're out there today, and David Leroy on Alpha with his 6 classes starting, he was getting ready to pull the trigger on an N over A and get everybody off the water. Next year, you won't be able to do that. You'll have to have 1 signal for those that are racing and the AP for those that haven't started. So that's why I'm not a fan of it. What you can do, and I invite people to look at what we've done in the sailing instructions for Sail Melbourne this year, is we preempted that for another reason, but those words will actually change the meaning of those signals, which you're entitled to do, and pretty much put them back to where they used to be. And there's another wrinkle in there with the changes in the Sail Melbourne one, is it compels them to come ashore. The rules as they stand now does not. All it says is there are further signals ashore, but if you want to stay out there and do your macho heavy weather training thing, you're free to do so. What we've changed now is, no, you will come ashore, which is what we generally want people to do. So that's that one. As I said, I'm not a fan of it, but it's there. A couple of things have changed in the introduction. the boat now has to be one that's subject to the rules. Under the current rules, anybody else sailing past could be considered to have to obey the rules, which is nonsense. You know, any other boat in the vicinity would not be expected to change the rules. Now we use vessel for anything that's not a boat. Just a couple of new definitions. Committee include all those three committees and the continuing obstruction. Oh, I should add that there have been 2 videos produced by Australian Sailing, and they will have. I got my copy yesterday in the email. If you got an email yesterday around midday, they probably don't all come out at the same time. And so there were 2 complementary presentations. One on which this is based, which is all for race officers, and the complementary one is more for judges and competitors. And so it covers all the other things. So the 2 together will pretty much cover all the rules. So don't worry about taking notes as I skid through here. You can go back and have a look at that video. It runs for about 30 minutes. And the bonus is that in the very last scene, you get to see my dog who came into the study while we were recording it. That's a free Easter egg for everybody. Change the definition of finish. You now no longer have to go through the finish line from the direction of the last mark if the sailing instructions change it. This is not looking to get hook finishes in. It's for passage races where there might be land in the way, and by the time you get to where the finish line is, you're actually not coming from the previous mark. So you've got to write that in, but you're welcome to do so. Proper course. This is an interesting one. And the thing in red is the interesting one. Complete the leg she believes she is on. So in this situation here, the blue boat should have left that mark to port. Everybody see that? Yeah. So she's actually going the wrong way, but she thinks that's the way she's going. So in her mind, the green symbols are her proper course. Once yellow tells her, no, you're supposed to leave that mark to port, and she turns around and goes back, now red is her proper course. Kind of funny one, but anyway, it's with us now. These are the minor changes. Go through and have a look at them if you like. All those things have had a minor change, mostly just the words. The intent has not changed. There is a change here for the competitor clothing. They've expanded that list. There's a few more things in there. And they have actually taken out the fact that it has to be ISO compliant. And I understand that's because nobody could make one that was ISO compliant. So they've removed that. Is that right, Kevin? Yeah, okay. They need better engineers. The fog signals back in Rule 56, they've added in there for automatic identification systems. You can't turn those off, and there'd generally be a discretionary penalty applied to that. And so that's any sort of tracker that you're required to carry that's now included in that rule. It's not really a natural fit for it, but it had to go somewhere, and that's as good a place as any. You now need those 3 elements to submit a protest. You previously didn't have to. And it's the same for race committee. If you want to put in a protest, you also need the protester or the protestee and the incident. In the olden days, you could put less in and just fill it in later as you went. Oh yeah, part 5, no real changes, but the whole thing's been reordered, and that's going to have a bearing on you writing your sailing instructions. If you're recycling existing sailing instructions, and I'm sure some of you are guilty of that, you're going to have to cross-check all the numbers to make sure they work. And on that, we will be putting up, I don't know where you get it officially, but we'll put it up on the Race Officials Facebook group, and you'll be able to see there's a destination document which says this is the old rule number, this is the new rule number, so you can just go through, and if you're using the old one in your current size, you can get it from the new one. That one. A whole bunch of minor changes here. Again, not changing the intent, just changing the wording. The appendices that you will find on the World Sailing site aren't sidebarred, but you can get them. Sorry, the ones that are published aren't sidebarred, but you can get them back from Australian Sailing. A couple in scoring, again, trivial ones, and the appendices down the bottom in the last paragraph. Not a lot of changes there. This is now just changing. Again, this is kind of the destination guidance. You don't need to change Appendix A, you only need to change 60.5. And lots of us now want to use online hearings. You must always accept a paper hearing, a paper protest form, unless you've written it into the notice of race or the sailing instructions. So if you want to go fully online, that's fine, but just make sure you write into the documentation. That's it. There you go. Okay. Thank you, Kate. We're back on site. Yeah, we're good. I think we're good. Yeah, without. Thank you, Peter. Thank you. All righty. Thank you very much, everybody, for your attendance this evening. And I'm sure the bar's still open, club. So please exit and have a sherbet and enjoy the rest of the evening. And do thank you again. Well done.